The Department of Water and Sanitation is urging citizens to use water sparingly amid fears of a dry winter season. In its weekly report, the department noted that 11 out of 14 major dams in the country recorded lower water levels compared to the week before. For more on this, we're joined this morning by Dr. Sean Phillips, who is the Director General in the Department of Water and Sanitation. Dr. Phillips, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming on this Workers' Day. So it's a dry winter, but not insofar as the weather is concerned. It's much more serious than that.
Hi, Michelle, and good morning to you and your viewers. The news article which quoted our statement didn't quote the part of our statement where we indicated that our storage capacity generally across the country is at comfortable levels.
Okay. We
always have a relatively dry winter in areas of the country like Gauteng, whereas in Cape Town, winter is the time when it rains. Mm-hmm. So generally speaking, we had a lot of rainfall last summer. Generally speaking, our dams are full. There are some areas of the country like Iberga, Port Elizabeth, where the dam levels are low because there's a localized drought there. In Cape Town, the dam levels are much lower than Gauteng, but as I indicated, the rainy season will be starting soon. So we hope that Cape Town will get through this winter without any severe problems with storage capacity. So
there is no real shortage to speak of. Is that what you're saying, Dr. Phillips? In the context where, of course, we are a water-scarce country. So while we might have water in storage, it's always a good idea to sort of encourage people to use water sparingly.
Absolutely, Michelle. So in the last year or two, we've had relatively good rains in the country, but it's not necessarily going to remain like that. We go through periods of good rains and then periods of poor rain cycles. And with climate change, that's likely to increase, and the dry cycles might get worse. We are a water-scarce country. We only get about half the level of rainfall that's the average across the world. So we're a very water-scarce country. And there's a limit to how much water we can store from rainfall. We're already using about 75% of the available surface water. We're in the process of building more dams to increase our storage capacity, but we're going to reach a stage where we're storing all the available water, and there won't be any more that can be stored through building more dams. So we need to start changing our culture now, and we need to start using water more efficiently now so that we can get through dry seasons, and also so that we can stop this trend of ever-increasing water use, because we don't have infinite water resources in the country. We need to build more dams to store the remaining available water, but at the same time we need to use water more efficiently, so that as we get close to using all the storage capacity available, we can be in a situation where we don't have water shortages.
Yeah. So it's also a case of, Dr. Phillips, looking at our water supply over a period of time, right? So if we're seeing that water levels are deteriorating over months and years, and there is that downturn, that if we look at the graph, every year, the available water is less and less. That's obviously also an issue. So while we may not be in a context of a shortage heading into winter, just year on year, should we be concerned?
No, the water isn't decreasing on average year on year, although the available water might decrease on average year on year due to climate change in the future. But I don't think it's possible yet to reach that conclusion. But that doesn't change the fact that we're a water-scarce country. We always have been, and there are limited water resources, so we have to use water efficiently. We can't, as a country, keep using more and more and expect it to just be there. We have to use the available water more efficiently. And we're not doing that currently. As an example, Michelle, in Gauteng, the average amount of water used per person per day is over 300 liters, which is much higher than the world average, even though we're a water-scarce country. In Copenhagen, in Denmark, for example, the average water use per person per day is 100 litres, 1/3 of what we use here in Gauteng. And that's partly because in our Gauteng cities, the municipalities are losing quite a lot of water due to physical losses, leakages in the distribution systems. But that's not the only reason. It's also because too many people use water inefficiently and they don't treat it as a scarce resource.
Yeah, I was about to say, Dr. Phillips, the fact that we are 3 times the average amount of water used per person than other countries in the world, it's not always due to the fact that people are using water carelessly. And that brings me to our question around infrastructure. Are we still battling, and are we perhaps winning the battle against losses of water due to a lack of infrastructure upkeep?
We're not yet winning that battle, Michelle, and it's the biggest battle for us as a department in the country, to work with municipalities, to encourage municipalities to invest in their water infrastructure to reduce those physical losses. In some cities and towns in the country, the physical losses are more than 50%. And it's critical that we address that. There's also a big opportunity for the private sector to become more involved in this area because they have finances to invest in public infrastructure, and they can make a return on that investment through the savings in water losses and through the increased revenue that will come to municipalities by not losing so much water. So we are encouraging municipalities to invest and also to partner with the private sector to address this non-revenue water and physical water losses problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly worrying, isn't it? Especially because there are so many communities around the country that still battle with access to clean water. So it's, what proportion of the country would you say is to blame for outside of the infrastructure challenges that we face, for using water irresponsibly, shall we say?
Well, there's a number of problems. Most municipalities have a problem of physical water losses, and most municipalities are not doing enough to improve their management of their distribution systems, to repair the leaking pipes and leaking pumps, and also to manage their water pressure better so that there's less leakages in the system. The municipalities need to also look more at tariffs which vary according to how much water you use, and people who use a lot of water should be paying a lot more.
Yeah.
So that the people who only use a little bit of water, relatively poor people, should not have to suffer because some people are using a lot of water. Those people who want to use a lot of water should pay more for water. And then there's another problem, a big problem of illegal connections, which is also a major challenge for municipalities, and vandalism of water meters. So we have an array of problems that we need to address this problem of inefficient use of water, physical water losses in municipalities, and water being used in an inefficient way.
Yeah,
one of the problems is that why people use water inefficiently, I think, in South Africa is because water is still relatively cheap. Again, using Copenhagen and Denmark as an example, water per liter or per kiloliter costs 3 times as much in US dollar terms than it costs in South Africa. And you heard I indicated that they use 1/3 of the amount of water per person than we do. So as I indicated, we need to make sure that all municipalities have a good step tariff system in place with punitive prices for people who use excessive amounts of water, so that we can create the right incentives for people to use water efficiently.
Yeah, absolutely. Penalize those who use more than that baseline of water. So, Dr. Phillips, this morning, for those of us listening and thinking, I am using water quite responsibly. I shower for 3 minutes. I reuse water to put into the garden. What are some of the other tips that you can give us this morning on how to be more conscious about how we use water?
We must particularly be conscious when municipalities issue warnings that they're in a difficult situation because of the weather conditions, and when they put in place restrictions. They're doing that for a very good reason. It's because because of the current weather conditions, because there's a drought. And if people continue to use a lot of water and to water their gardens and fill their swimming pools during those times, then it means that people living in high-lying areas won't get any water. So it's very selfish to do that when restrictions are put in place, because you might be able to fill your swimming pool and water your garden, but other people in high-lying areas might have no water at all for long periods of time, because lots of people in the low-lying areas are using too much water.
Yeah, something very important to keep in mind. Dr. Sean Phillips, let me thank you for your time this morning. Thanks for giving us that perspective. He is the Director General in the Department of Water and Sanitation, as we continue to track what is always an important story, using water and using water responsibly.